Hello, everybody. Jojo here. Welcome back to Octave11. It's a heavy old day in the world today, but we're all here and we've all got some info to share. So welcome back, Marg, our astrologer extraordinaire, and Ricardo Crypto. So again, we're going to have a little chat about the Bitcoin Genesis chart and the transits that are going over that at the moment and how that might rub up against or make movements in the Bitcoin charts. So welcome back, guys. Lovely
Hi,
to see your
Jojo.
faces.
Hi,
Thank
Marg.
you. Hi, Ricardo. And I'll just mention that we are not giving financial advice in any shape or form. We're just looking at an astrology chart and mapping the transits.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
So kind of following on from last week, I did take a little moment yesterday to have a look at the Bitcoin birth chart, 3rd of January 2009. And I looked at the transits to it for the next year. You know, with astrology, we can look forever into the future. You know, we've got the ephemeris with everything, but I just thought I'll just go for a few months down the track and see what I can see.
Sure.
And it's fairly intense for crypto in the coming months. And I don't know, you know, like I said last time, I don't know whether that intensity is indicating good movement or, you know, up movement or down movement. But I thought I'd start with Pluto because the Pluto transit, Pluto's ingress into Capricorn in 2008 was really the harbinger of crypto, of Bitcoin. You know, that I feel like that was the global story that propelled whoever it was to create blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. And Pluto is actually going to be giving the crypto chart a bit of a hammering over the next few months. So if you wanted to put the crypto chart up, might
Sure.
want to do that or...
Jojo, you'll have to enable screen sharing again, and then I'll share my screen. And I've got the same Bitcoin Genesis chart that we had last time.
There you go.
And that's it. Thank you. I'll just get it up, bring it up now. Which one is it? It's here. Right. So hopefully you're looking at the Genesis chart of Bitcoin.
Yes.
Good.
I am.
That worked.
Yeah, it did. And so you can see, you know, I'm using my cursor, but it would have to be you using your cursor.
Yeah.
Ricardo. So if you point to Pluto on the chart there, and we can see that it's at 1 degree of Capricorn. So, you know, it had only been, it just starting its journey really through Capricorn. And in the sky right now, Pluto is at 24 degrees of Capricorn. And we did mention last week that the progressed sun, so that 13 degree Capricorn Bitcoin sun, in a symbolic way is sitting at 26 degrees now. And so Pluto is going to hit that in January. So when Pluto really, you know, hits something in an exact way, there has to be change. I'm not sure if you've tuned into previous Pluto conjunctions or transits to the chart, Ricardo, but because, you know, obviously over its lifetime, it's hit that Mars and it's hit that natal sun.
Yep.
I didn't go back to look at those times.
No, I haven't. Yeah, I haven't looked at that yet, but I'm going to.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to look at because with everything to do with astrology and maybe to do with money markets, things are based on cycles and patterns. And so be interesting to know how Bitcoin responds to Pluto transits. But it's definitely getting hit over January and then again in late April and then again in June and late July. So there's a lot of activity for the progressed sun in the Pluto chart, in the Bitcoin chart. And then, of course, it's not until March of 23 that it gets that Jupiter gets hit by Pluto. So we know that the sun is the identity of Bitcoin, and we know that Jupiter is an indicator of wealth and expansion. But I leave it to the people that really know money markets or follow that in a closer way than I do to kind of speculate what might happen with Pluto moving. And Pluto brings deep change. January, April, June and July, Pluto is really going to be hitting the crypto chart, the Bitcoin chart, and creating some sort of turmoil. Whether that turmoil is... Go on.
We did have a subscriber had a question around the 17th of July next year, wondering if there was something specifically on that date.
That might tie in with this.
Wondering whether there might be a peak around that time.
Okay. I will just look at the 17th of July. And that's with the sun in the sky at 24 degrees of Cancer, which will be opposite the progressed sun of the Bitcoin chart. And Pluto's at 27. I don't know what they're referring to have anything jump out at me, particularly on the 17th.
They were looking at technical analysis of the chart, and that date had come up, and they were wondering if that related to anything happening astrologically.
Nothing significant.
Nothing significant,
but it could be connecting in some way with other levels of the Bitcoin chart, or it might be a trend that's not kind of coming through the astrology. It wasn't a date that came up for me in my looking, but that doesn't mean anything.
No, well, maybe the next time we have a chat between now and then, we'll have more of a look and see what else we can find out.
We can. And I'm just thought maybe Jupiter was doing something spectacular. What's it going to be? 22, isn't it? July 22. Not really picking up anything.
That's all right.
Yeah. And again, that doesn't mean that there isn't anything that's going to happen. It's just that I wrote a few notes yesterday, and often when you start looking at a chart, you just pick out a planet and start watching it, and then you look at another one, and you start getting emphasis around a certain time.
Yeah. And
certainly July is a time that came up with other transits, but I wasn't going into that detail that I would look at particular dates.
Sure.
It's just not how I did it. But anyway, we've definitely got Pluto hammering the chart. And we've also got Venus in the sky going to go retrograde. Now, Venus is in Capricorn. Venus is in Pisces in the Bitcoin chart, but Venus is in Capricorn at the moment, and it's going to go retrograde on the 19th of December and at 26 degrees of Capricorn, which again is the progressed sun of Bitcoin. Venus was money and value. So Venus is going to move up to that point, and then it's going to retrograde right back. And on the 9th of January, it will be conjunct the Bitcoin. And it really is spending a long time in Capricorn because it's doing its 18-month cycle of going retrograde, which slows it right down and keeps it in one sign for a longer time than it might usually race through in a few weeks. So we're getting a highlight of, Venus, that bright light in the evening sky at the moment, is going to disappear, and she'll be emerging again as the morning star rather than the evening star. But through all of that, she's going to be traveling over that Capricorn stellium.
Yes.
That would be significant. And we could have been a little bit more thorough in our research and looked at previous cycles of Venus retrograding in Capricorn, because she did it 8 years ago. So that would be 2013.
Do you know which months?
We're in 2021. Yeah, 2013, 14.
Okay.
So are you pulling up a chart?
I don't know if you can see the blue line chart.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can.
I'll see if I'm not sure if
to take it back to December 2013, December, January.
I don't know if the data will go back that far, but we'll see. Yeah. We'll have a look. It should do. It does actually.
And good.
Now you can see there that looks like a flat line.
Yes.
But if we zoom in on it, we start to see
December of 2013.
That's not a flat line, is it? That's like a massive.
Oh, wow.
So that's just how much Bitcoin. This is going back to when in 2013. Here we are in December. Okay, so that was one of the of those cycle years for Bitcoin. That's why we've got this big peak happening here, because we actually had a big. Now that's interesting, because this is back when Bitcoin in 2013 was around $100, and today it's around
70,000 Australian, roughly.
Yeah, 70,000. This is $100.
That's just made me think of something astrological. You mentioned before that Bitcoin seems to have a bit of a 4-year cycle.
Yeah.
That could be relating to Venus. So you see there in December of 2013, Venus went retrograde in Capricorn.
In December.
Which it's about to do, yes, which it's about to do again.
So that was the peak of the bull run, what they call the bull run in 2013, where the price went from about $100 or $120 US and then peaked at $1,100 or thereabouts. So it did a 10 times move, or 1,000% move in 1 month.
So we're looking at like Venus retrograding starting again in December, Marg?
Yes, so December 2013, Venus went retrograde on the 21st of December, okay?
That's right in there.
And you can see what is happening on that chart. This year, December 2021, Venus goes retrograde on the 19th of December. So, then
it really could do a run that big, even though it's looking unlikely.
Yeah.
Because, however, of course, this time round, we've got the Saturn-Uranus square becomes exact on the 24th.
Yep.
So close to the Venus date as well, the Saturn-Uranus square. And you might have noticed some other activities when we've had the Saturn-Uranus square over this year.
That's right. That's what we were looking at earlier.
So just a quick touch on, Marg, about the Saturn-Uranus energies, like being the old versus the new sort of energies. You maybe could explain a little bit more about that square and why it's so powerful.
Well, Saturn, just generally, Saturn rules boundaries, time. It contains and can compress. Uranus generally is a radical opening or shift and change. So they're not exactly compatible kinds of energies. And when they're in a square, well, what I've related it to over the last year has been the experiences that we've had with COVID, like we've been locked down, Saturn. We protest, Uranus, or the restrictions ease, Uranus. So it's that pull between authoritarian, like rules and closing and shutting us down, and the Uranian breaking free. And that's not to say that Saturn is all bad and Uranus is all good. There's, of course, shadow sides to each archetype, but that's sort of it in a nutshell. And we've had it. And are these the exact kind of dates for it, Richard? That I can see on your screen: February, June, and December.
That's right. And I've drawn these boxes here, which basically show what was happening just before the square. So in February, we were in a trough in price, and we went up into the square.
Yes.
So that's the 21st of February. And then the opposite happened in June, where we were at somewhat of a peak beforehand. And then leading up to the square, we went down in price into a trough. And so what's happening with this one that we're getting coming up in December, we're actually, as of today, the Bitcoin price has gone up a little bit from where it was over the weekend or from the end of last week. And so we have made a bit of a trough or a low point.
Yes.
So leading into the December square, there is a pattern there that shows that the price could be rising as we approach that date, which ties in with the Venus thing we mentioned earlier.
And it does. And the other interesting thing is just looking at I'm looking at my ephemeris. Of course, we all know that there's a new moon eclipse this Saturday, which is the 4th of December. But when I go back in time to the 2013 December, there was an eclipse in the November. So it was also kind of in the eclipse zone time and the Venus retrograde.
So have we can maybe get some info, Ricardo, on eclipses overlaid on the chart. Have you noticed anything in the charts in regard to eclipse season?
I haven't looked at that yet. That's something else to go back and again look at the patterns that show up over the years. I'm just going back to 2013.
Yeah.
So what was the month of the eclipse in 2013?
November, the 3rd of November. This time it's the 4th of December.
So that 3rd of November 2013 was around the time when this big movement started. It took off from that point. Again, if we look, I don't know if you have any data there for 2017.
Was that December as well?
It was around the end of the year in 2017, peaking in it was right on the 19th of December, and then around that time.
No, the eclipse close to that was in the eclipse prior to that was in August, and that was August the 21st. So you can see it does seem to start climbing, doesn't it? But there was also an eclipse in the January 2018.
There was, right. So that one in August of 2017 was when the price started its upward pattern. But that kind of marks the base of it.
So it would be an interesting study to actually, we don't have time now to go back and eclipses every year, of course. Eclipses occur every 6 months. Whether they're so that would be an interesting other study that I didn't look at, but I did look at Pluto and I did look at Uranus and Saturn because I was aware from our talk last week of the Uranus-Saturn square having an impact, and that's going to have an impact over the nodes. The nodes of the moon. That's Saturn in the skies at 8 degrees of Aquarius now, and the north node of the Bitcoin chart is at 9 degrees
of Aquarius.
Yeah, so we've got the eclipse on Saturday, and then about next Tuesday or Wednesday, Saturn hits that node.
Right.
And so we'd have to look and see what we, feel into. Saturn's been on that node, on that degree before, earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I can check that out. Saturn, and that was in March, middle of March.
So that March, right? That where am I?
March 21, March this year, middle of March.
Because we had a rally in price from the beginning of the year, up to a peak which was just after March.
Okay.
So the peak was in March, April. There was a peak on the 5th, around the 14th of March. There was a peak, and then it dropped a bit, and then it went up a little bit higher by April, the 15th of April. But it had moved upwards from a low back in December 2020.
Well, Saturn and Uranus were square in that March one, and Uranus was on the node. Sorry, Uranus was square the nodes and Saturn was on the node. And then it happened again with Saturn on the node in August, mid-August of this year. And that time Uranus wasn't particularly hitting anything in the chart.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was trining, it wasn't squaring. So where's mid-August? So do you notice anything?
Well, again, prior to August, in July, we had reached a low point, and then the price started moving upwards into August. So by mid-August, there was a little peak that went higher in 5th of September, but by the middle of August, we'd reached the top of this sort of wave here, or peak.
Oh.
So that's interesting, because that, that's fascinating.
So Saturn rules time and Uranus is a bit of a wild card. So it's interesting how it's unfolding. And so when you had that moved along before to December, you had a faint line, arrow, of potential movement up, but you've also got a faint line, arrow of potentially moving down.
That's right. So before today, I had started this box back at this peak that formed in November, because it wasn't obvious that there was a trough right here. Whereas today that's become obvious. So, but before today, like going back to the end of last week, I was looking at this peak here and then thinking, as we move into this square in December, that we might be just continuing downwards, because we have some sort of significant horizontal levels here. So I was imagining that we might be heading towards these lower levels. But, we'll know more as this week unfolds as to whether this point here is a bit of a trough. And in that case, we may be actually heading upwards into the square later in December.
It'll be interesting to watch after the eclipse, I think. The other thing I mentioned was, the other thing I noted were the Mercury retrograde seasons for 2022.
Yes.
The first one comes on the 14th of January on the north node of the Bitcoin chart at 10 degrees of Aquarius. So Mercury retrogrades back through that Aquarian stellium and right back to the progressed sun at 24 degrees of Capricorn. So from the 14th of January until the 4th of February, we've got a retrograde Mercury, and Mercury rules trading. So again, for me, I would have to go and look at all the previous Mercury retrograde times to see how Bitcoin responded to them. You may have already done that.
I've had a little bit of a look going back, maybe 3 or 4 years, and I did notice it's been happening less in recent time, but there's a bit of a correlation, and seemed to be, whether it was a movement in the upward direction or the downward direction, that was sort of signifying a movement happening. So I've actually got the Mercury retrogrades marked, funnily enough, just by coincidence, Marg. I don't know how that happened, but I've got the retrogrades. I've got the Mercury retrogrades for last year marked here.
Okay. Well, just before you start talking about that, I'm just going to give the 3 retrograde periods for next year before I lose track.
Sure.
So Mercury retrogrades on the 14th of January, on the 10th of May, and on the 10th of September.
That's
next
okay.
year.
That's good.
2022. So there's the 3 times that,
We'll have a look at that, Marg, and get those up on a chart, and we can have a look at those next time.
Yeah.
I've got them projected here.
Oh, you have? Yeah, there's future ones, Jojo. Yeah.
Now,
what am I looking at? The blue rectangles, or?
So if you look at you're seeing this blue line chart now, aren't you?
Yes.
I'm just checking that we're looking at the same thing. But I've got these pink, purpley rectangles, which are the Mercury retrogrades. I'm just pulling them down now for this year.
Yes.
And they show a movement in one direction or the other. So this one that was in February this year, there was a price movement upwards. The one that was in June, it just sort of didn't go anywhere. It just sort of went up and down a little bit. But then the one in September of this year, we had a clear upward movement in price.
Okay, interesting, because the one in June corresponds with the exact Uranus-Saturn conjunction as well. Yeah.
Saturn Uranus.
Well, maybe that's why it was a bit more
Saturn Uranus square.
The square, that's right. I've got the crosses here, the plus signs marking the Yeah, it does too. And the one earlier lines up a bit with the square as well.
September, and that was
and the one that happened in the retrograde in February lines up with the Saturn Uranus square that was happening. So that's pretty interesting.
But the September one wasn't lining up with the Saturn Uranus. Is there a difference when you look at it?
The September retrograde, that did mark a clear upward movement in the Bitcoin price.
Okay.
So it sort of goes from day to day. Like the beginning of the retrograde was the trough, and the end of the retrograde was the peak. So that one lined up really well.
Yeah. And that one crossed the bottom of the Bitcoin chart.
And the same with February. There was the February Mercury retrograde in 2020 lines up with a trough when it began and then a peak when it finished.
That's 2021, isn't it? Early this year?
Sorry, 2021, I mean.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2021.
Yes.
So they are lining up. So that's interesting because, as you say, Marg, we've got another one coming up in January next year. And if we are going to get a bit of a price rise happening towards the end of this year, that, it may line up, like hypothetically, that we then have a bit of a movement going down when the retrograde happens.
Well, January is definitely a time to watch. A time to watch. I'm noticing that we don't have much time left. I don't know if it's showing on yours, but it's telling me we've got 4 more minutes.
Oh, I thought you were talking about life.
No, 4 more minutes for the Zoom recording.
Or maybe we should pause the session and do a part B. Or should we wrap it up now? And
I think we wrap it up now because that's my notes, and you can come back next week and tell us how it's all gone with the eclipse and the new moon, and
I'll do some,
and then because that next Saturn Uranus square exact when did we say? 19th or something of December.
24th.
24th of December. It's in the eclipse time, you know, that'll be
Okay. Yep. So we'll get back on that, and I'll go back and look at what happened during the eclipses in the Bitcoin chart going back in time, and we'll see if there's any patterns.
If you can put your future predicting glasses on, there's an eclipse on the 1st of May next year at 10 degrees of Taurus. So the eclipse is squaring the Bitcoin nodal axis. That's
when the Mercury retrograde starts.
It's always interesting when all these things kind of line up. That's what it means.
The day.
We already talked about May. Now we're talking about May again. Yes.
So
that'll be an interesting one, won't it? The 10th of May.
Yeah, that'll be powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have a think about that.
All right. May you enjoy your observations of the money markets and the crypto markets, Ricardo.
May you have a good rest of the day, Marg.
Thank you.
Thanks, lovely humans.
Thank you, Jojo.
Thank you both. I appreciate your expertise. Again, we're not giving financial advice. And we can have a chat about the moon cycles completely separate to money markets, Jojo.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Hey, that's a good idea. Do that.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks, Marg. Thanks, Ricardo.
You too, guys.
Love your work.
Thanks, Jojo. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.